this think tank and people in this global space on matters to do with the subject that you have asked me to speak on. Elections in Kenya, challenges and opportunities for shared prosperity. I was here about 3.5 years, 3 years and a few months and a bit. Our ability to make sure that our election is free, is fair, and is peaceful. We have confidence in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission that they can deliver a credible election if they are properly resourced, they are supported both by government and our development partners and friends, as has been the tradition of support to IEBC. That election is a decisive election. I may also call it a transition election, because in it we have either to transit into a prosperous Kenya, or we could regress into something else. There are largely, from where I stand, there are 3 propositions on the ballot this year. Number 1 is our democracy and constitutionalism. That's on the ballot this year. On our side, we believe that the way to the future is to consolidate our democracy by completing the implementation of our 2010 Constitution that is largely a very progressive constitution that provides for checks and balances, that separates the judiciary from the executive, from the legislature, and provides a system of checks and balances, builds in accountability, ensures that we have shared prosperity with our robust county system of government and our county governments that have become a very big celebration by the people of Kenya of that shared prosperity. On the other side of the divide, of course, we have our competitors who now have doubts about our 2010 Constitution. They have proposed a raft of amendments in the region of 72 different amendments in an exercise called the BBI process. And they want to bring back an imperial presidency. They want more power given to the president. They want the president to have power over the judiciary. They want the president to appoint an entity called ombudsman that seeks to supervise and superintend the judiciary. They want the president to go back to appointing ministers from parliament, which in our opinion undermines the oversight responsibility of parliament. If you inject members of the executive into parliament, we go back straight where we were before the new constitution. So on one side, we think we should be able to consolidate our democracy and complete the implementation of the new constitution. On the other side, they want to amend the constitution and take us back where we came from. 30 years ago. The second item on the ballot is our political culture. We believe that our focus should be building institutions, institutionalizing our governance, institutionalizing our politics, institutionalizing our accountability, and institutionalizing all the oversight responsibilities and our progress. What do I mean by this? On one side, we believe we must build our politics around political parties. We've painstakingly been part of building national political parties. I was a member of KANU when KANU was a national political party. I was a member of ODM when we built it as a national political party. I participated in building Jubilee as a national political party. Today, we have built the largest, most popular political party, the United Democratic Alliance, and we have built the largest, most popular political formation with our partners in NC and partners in Fort Kenya under the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. On the other side, many believe that politics should be built around personalities and personality outfits. The question I often am asked is, how will you succeed in your presidential campaign unless you have the support of Uhuru Kenyatta, or the next guy, or the next guy, oblivious of the fact that we have built the largest political party to many people. And that's the culture we need to deal with, is that the institution of a political party, they don't see the value of it. They see the personalities. And that's why the contest in this election is, on one side, we have the team that I belong to, the team that I lead. We believe that this contest should be framed around a national political party and a national political movement rather than on personalities and individuals. Number one, we believe that we should build our politics around an accountable executive and an accountable government with clear demarcations of the opposition and the government. Our competitors on the other side seem to have blurred lines between what is government and what is the opposition. The result which you see today in Kenya, there is no government and there is no opposition. Today in Kenya, you have a mongrel of a governance system. You don't know whether it is the government that is in the opposition or the opposition is the one that is in government. Today, the leader of the opposition is a project of the system and the deep state of government. And unfortunately, the leader of what is supposed to be the ruling party is actually a squatter, or is it a refugee in the opposition party. So we have quite a situation. And it's because of that that we believe we must not build our politics around individuals. We must build our politics around institutions. If we had built our even engagements around political parties, we wouldn't have ended in the situation that Kenya is in today, where we have opposition members chairing government committees. We have the leader of government being the foremost supporter of the leader of opposition. The third issue on that subject of political culture and building institutions. Today, anywhere in Kenya, people will tell you the fight, apart from the oversight responsibility of the opposition over government being compromised because of the lack of institutionalization of our governance. Today, anybody in Kenya will tell you the fight against corruption is laced largely with political persuasion. If you have challenges of having stolen from the public, you only need to be a friend. You only need to profess that you support the handshake and you support the BBI, and you will have no consequences. It is our belief that accountability should be built and institutionalized. That's why we believe that the very first thing we must do in completing the implementation of the Constitution is to operationalize what the Constitution provides for, the judiciary fund, to give the judiciary the capacity, the financial independence to be able to deploy their full potential in discharging their constitutional mandate of adjudicating on disputes, dealing with matters of accountability, dealing with matters of corruption, so that corruption cases do not take 10 years because the judiciary is undercapacitated, because they do not have the resources to hire the personnel, the magistrates, the judges, the software, the hardware, to be able to discharge their responsibility. At the very first instance, it's our commitment that we must operationalize the judiciary fund and get the judiciary to do independently what they are supposed to do. The second item is the entire criminal justice system, from the DCI to the Inspector General and all the investigative authorities in between, must also be given what the Constitution says, their financial independence. Today, the IG, the Inspector General, the DCI, they run independent offices, but they depend on the office of the president for their finances. They do not have financial independence. There is a common saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So if somebody else is paying, that's how they decide who you go after and who you don't go after. That's how they decide If you are on this side of the political divide, there are no resources to prosecute. And if you are on this other side of the divide, there are resources to prosecute. We believe the criminal justice system should be truly independent by not just having constitutional independence, but having financial independence to discharge their responsibility. Institutions, institutionalizing the fight against corruption, institutionalizing accountability, institutionalizing oversight. That way, we will be on the trajectory of getting Kenya where we want. So, what's on the ballot? Those of us who believe we should institutionalize our politics along political party lines, institutionalize accountability by having clear separation between the opposition and government, institutionalizing the fight or accountability by making sure that the judiciary is independent, the institution of the criminal justice system is independent, not just by constitution, but financial and operational independence as well, rather than build these around personalities who then become subjective and who then become biased, and we end up in the place we should not be. Finally, in the ballot, we have driven the economy right to the heart of this contest. And we are looking at democratizing the economy of Kenya. And that is why, with our partners in ANC and Ford Kenya, we have built an economic model around this election that gives us opportunity to expand and make sure that our economic model is inclusive. Make sure that the millions of our citizens who are today locked out of the economic cycle because they have no jobs, 4 million of our young people out of school, out of college, out of university, have no jobs, and it's not going to be business as usual. How are we going to do it differently? We're going to deliberately, and I could give examples later, deliberately invest in areas that are labor intensive, that create jobs, so that we can deal with the challenge of unemployment and create inclusivity. Number two, 80% of all our business is in the space of micro, small, and medium enterprise. We believe to create economic inclusion, this category, who suffer 3 challenges. They do not have legislation to protect their business. They have challenges in the environment in which they operate. And when I say in the environment in which they operate, even huge corporates in Kenya will tell you they have a wall of licenses, 10 licenses, 15 licenses that they have to suffer before they can get their business up and running. And finally, and this is especially for the micro and small enterprises, is the whole challenge of access to credit. It is really the elephant in that space. Let me give you an example. Because of the challenge of access to credit, we have a huge problem of predatory lenders. And because of predatory lenders, today, 15 million Kenyans are blacklisted on Credit Reference Bureau. 15 million Kenyans blacklisted is actually half our working population. That tells you there is a serious problem of access to credit. Many of these micro enterprises, research shows that many of them pay as high as $1,000 per year to access credit. Some 2,000%, while corporates access credit at 10%. The micro and small enterprises access credit all the way to 1,000%. It's reasonably. These are enterprises that end up making $1, $2, maybe $3 on a good day. And with just access to credit, reasonable credit, affordable credit, you can actually increase their income from $2, $3 to $6, $7. You can double their income just by making sure that we access credit. It's a challenge that we have, and it's a challenge we must deal with. Inclusivity again. And this is about the economy. And finally, we have to do something about the biggest sector that drives our economy.
The meeting is being live streamed, and a number of other people are watching online because of COVID situation. But I want to thank you once again for inviting me to this very historic institution, where great ideas are openly discussed and contested among thought leaders, global statesmen, policymakers, and academics. I come here at a special time in my own political life. Just last week, I was nominated by the Azimio la Umoja, Kenya's largest political movement, as his candidate for the President of the Republic of Kenya. It is an honor and privilege for me to be entrusted with the opportunity, if Kenyans so decide, on August 9th this year, to lead my country at a time of great suffering in the world. And that is why discussions such as these in a forum as important as this could not have come at a better time. So thank you once again. The world is going through very uncertain times. Notwithstanding the COVID-19 pandemic, we are currently faced with a crisis in Ukraine that is sending thousands of people into neighboring European countries as refugees. The Ukraine crisis, like the COVID-19, is a global phenomenon. The United Nations needs to urgently take leadership in finding a solution through diplomacy and dialogue already initiated in recent discussions in the Security Council. And Kenya has taken a very firm stand on this issue. In Kenya, we stand to lose about 10 billion Kenyan shillings worth of exports to Russia as a result of sanctions. That is about $100 million US. We export coffee, tobacco, coffee, tea, spices, live trees, plants, bulbs, roots, cut flowers, edible fruits, nuts, and melons to both Russia and Ukraine. In 2020, we imported wheat, maize, and fertilizers worth about $406 million US from Russia. This might be equally adversely affected by the sanctions and the disruptions of war at a time our economy can hardly afford such a stress. We in Kenya know too well the cost of war as a result of the conflicts in our neighboring countries. Our interventions in Somalia, necessary as it is, has been very expensive to us. It is estimated that we spend at least $2.8 million US per personnel cost alone, on personnel cost alone. As the African Union High Representative for Infrastructure Development, I have come to deeply appreciate the need for linking countries through infrastructure to promote trade, development, and peace. We would rather use the little money we have in financing development than in fighting wars or supporting peacekeepers in our war-torn neighbors, necessary as this has become. As the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya, and as a champion of democratization and good governance in Africa, I will give primacy to the pursuit of conflict resolution and continental peace within the framework of the African Union. In this regard, we in East Africa are proud of the progress in the East African community, which has now expanded its membership and which now stands at 7. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is now the latest entrant. This now creates a landmass that spans from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean. In the middle of COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on our economies, the world needs multilateralism more than ever before. We saw the need for multilateralism when the COVID struck. The real scandal about the global response to COVID-19 has been the vaccine inequity, or what has been called vaccine apartheid. Because of the international outcry, these inequities are now being addressed. I want to personally express my appreciation for countries, especially the UK, Europe, and the US, for addressing vaccine shortages in Kenya and in Africa. However, we need a more structural solution to vaccine inequity to avoid the recurrence of what has happened with COVID. Vaccine manufacturing capacity in Africa is urgent, as is the licensing of vaccines for local production to expedite the vaccination process continentally. And here we're happy that Kenya has now signed an agreement to be able to have vaccines produced locally in Kenya. Multilateralism will also save us from senseless conflicts like the one we are currently witnessing between Russia and Ukraine. I must say that wars of aggression against sovereign states violate the cardinal principles of sovereignty and the inviolability of borders of a state. In Africa, we long realized that reopening grievances over colonial borders would append us all. It's a Pandora's box that must never be touched. And that is why the African Union, and before it, the Organization of African Unity, has stuck religiously to the international law principle of uti possidetis juris. It provides that newly formed sovereign states should retain the internal borders that their preceding dependent areas had before their independence. Kenya's position at the United Nations in full support of the immediate cessation of hostility by Russia and a search for common peace, which has found widespread international support. Even though the sanctions imposed on Russia by the West will hurt the economic interests of Kenya and Africa, they are actions that I support. Rather than beat the drums of war, let us ring the bells of peace and summon all and sundry to the round table where all conflicts can be resolved through dialogue. It is in this spirit of dialogue that His Excellency President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and I resolved in March 2018 that Kenya's long-standing conflicts and disagreements among our communities and political parties could be resolved through dialogue. We held extensive discussions looked into our history, the genesis and evolution of political disagreements, and the contradictions we needed to pay attention to. Then we shook hands publicly and announced our commitment to create a political system that would accommodate our social, ethnic, and political differences in an inclusive democratic process. This is what came to be known as the Building Bridges Initiative, or BBI. The initiative held public consultations and suggested various reforms with regard to public policy, the Constitution, elections, inclusivity in government, endemic corruption, and improving the general well-being of our people. The BBI is currently tied up in the Supreme Court, whose ruling we shall abide by. The spirit of dialogue and handshake continues in the Azimio la Umoja movement, on whose ticket I'm seeking to be the president. Azimio is a broad national democratic movement which puts premium on our national unity, inclusive development, and transparent and accountable use of public resources. I am convinced that our Constitution still needs some reforms. For example, a candid look at the relationship between Parliament and the executive is urgent. The 2010 Constitution introduced a devolved system of government that has brought tremendous changes in the governance and distribution and the use of public resources at the grassroots. Devolution is here with us to stay. We can only make it better through higher allocation of the national budget to the counties. The Constitution stipulates that at least 15% of the budget should be allocated to the counties. We in Azimio la Umoja coalition propose that the allocation be raised to at least 35% of the national budget. I will pursue this proposal. I have always believed in the dictum that a central government does best when it governs least at the local level. Good. Article 43 of our Constitution guarantees Kenyans basic social and economic rights such as education, health, food, water, housing, and social security. I will purpose to implement this very important article. The COVID-19 pandemic has left our economy struggling. I intend to radically shift focus to supporting the micro, small, and medium enterprises and give them resources for scaling up and fill gaps emerging from the pandemic. I also plan to provide a supportive regulatory framework, including providing linkages with the formal and private sector and public sector so that the micro, small, and medium enterprises can thrive. I plan to increase the agricultural productivity by providing inputs to smallholders in addition to farm subsidies to farmers to enable us to produce for consumption and export. In the long term, I plan for the Azimio to prioritize an industrialization policy that is export-minded and that allows the private sector to drive the export agenda. I will support the private sector to lead a shift from exporting raw materials and agricultural produce and venture into industrial manufacturing with eyes on the international market. We will continue to expand the frontiers of quality public education and also pay more attention to skills-oriented education at the basic level to prepare students for productive work when they do not pursue higher professions at college and above. The current government has done a great job with regard to universal health coverage. My government will take up from where the Jubilee government has reached and eliminate the difference in terms of quality and cost between the public and private health facilities. Universal access must be universal access in word and in deed. I intend to improve health knowledge and awareness among our people so that family, community, and preventive health care are part of our healthcare infrastructure. I also intend to establish an institute for biotechnology and genetic engineering in Kenya so as to enhance our domestic capacity to develop vaccines and pharmaceuticals. Social protection will be central in the delivery of social services to the poor and indigents under my government. I told our citizens that our major reason, I hope that one major reason that I hope to be their leader is to help lift the extreme poor and vulnerable families so that they can access the basics and later support themselves. We will also mount serious war on corruption and unveil fundamental reforms to the structure of our economy. Much has been said about Kenya's indebtedness. Kenya is now approaching US $100 billion in public debt. This puts Kenya in the group of the most indebted, debt-stressed middle and lower income developing countries, now being forced into IMF credit and IMF supervised austerity programs. Such austerity programs are usually implemented in the sole interest of satisfying the debt repayment at the expense of people's livelihoods. You have no choice in the matter. We will have to seek the indulgence and cooperation of our development partners to renegotiate our debt. I will also audit our debt to establish its actual size. We acknowledge that even our troubles with the debt are in the part caused by corruption, kleptocracy, and a state capture. We'll mount a serious war on corruption. Corruption, as it manifests today, is a global phenomenon. We need a new global partnership around this critical issue. Although the tax burden on Kenyans is now unbearable, I will make sure Kenya does not default on debt repayment. In future, we will strive to borrow at a favorable interest rate, negotiate repayment periods that are not stressful, and invest in enterprises that give good social and economic returns. Finally, Kenya is committed to rolling back global warming through drastic reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, particularly at the industrial and corporate level, in line with the Paris Climate Agreement. As Kenya's Prime Minister in the year 2008 to 2013, I was at the forefront in the struggle to save our water towers, expand afforestation, and increase large-scale production of green energy by increased investment in geothermal, solar, and wind power. My government will move systematically to replace fossil fuels with green energy in production and transportation, generally. We have done what we could do to save and preserve our water towers in the country. Because this came at a political price that we said we are ready to pay so that we can be able to protect our environment. I am continue to be committed to ensuring that Kenya contributes its part in this global undertaking to make our environment much more safe for future generations. I thank you.
25% of our GDP is contributed to by agriculture. 50% of our GDP, agriculture, plus all the linkages. So it's not possible to discuss the economy of our country without discussing agriculture. And agricultural transformation, right from interventions in seeds, interventions in fertilizer, interventions in market, interventions, getting rid of cartels, dealing with brokers, making sure that we have clear value chains. And if I give you an example, we are, for example, the largest producer of milk in the continent. We produce 5 billion liters of milk. But if you go to see our productivity, it's anywhere between 3 liters or 3 kilos and 4 kilos per cow. Same cow, same farmer, with a little bit of input on a different feed. You can actually take the same cow, same farmer, to 15 liters, 20 liters. You can triple, maybe quadruple their productivity. And we could turn around the fortunes of many in that space of agriculture. We import 180 billion shillings worth of food items into Kenya, when we have a huge farming community that can actually produce. 12 million households in Kenya are in the category that majority end up being net importers of food, yet they are farmers. We need to build the capacity, increase the productivity of these people who are already in the farms so that they can produce enough for them to eat. And with enhanced productivity, they can begin to help us manage the 180 billion import bill by supplying some of it. So that's really the trajectory I would want us to look at. So we have pushed this whole economic discussion into the equation. Our friends on the other side, maybe they will explain to you what I have heard them talk about is the old stories, the things that haven't made a difference in Kenya. And so I consider that, as I conclude, I consider that the people of Kenya have a choice that cannot be clearer. And it will determine whether we go forward as a stable, progressive, democratic, constitutional country, or we regress to what we see part of the world going. Maybe we see what's going on in Ukraine, that people are beginning to roll back democracy, go back to more authoritarianism and that kind of thing. And the people of Kenya, in my opinion, their choices are very clear. They will choose wisely, and they will choose the next government that they know can deliver prosperity going into the future and overcome their challenges. Thank you very much.
So for those of you on Zoom, just a reminder, that was His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, Deputy President of Kenya, discussing the opportunities and the outlook for change arising from August's elections that are coming up in Kenya, and sharing his vision of a bottom-up economic model for Kenya's long-term prosperity. Just a reminder to everybody in this room that this event is the first of a series of events that we're organising at Chatham House on Kenya's 2022 elections and political developments. And next week, we will be advertising shortly. Raila Odinga will be speaking here also. So, if you want to ask questions, we're going to do this two ways. One is there's roving microphones in the room, and I'll start off that way. But we're also, via Zoom, receiving questions from all over the world. So if you want to ask a question and you're on Zoom, please use your Q&A box function to indicate that. And I will also see if I can invite some of those who are on Zoom to ask their questions verbally, but I'll also summarize some of those that are coming in. So again, we'll take 3 questions now from the hall, and the lady in the far left there, you, madam, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you.
Deputy President, we'll take questions in 3s, so if you just take down
Your Excellency, Deputy President of Kenya, distinguished guests, Dr. Alex, my fellow Kenyans, first I say karibuni to our guests, and jambo. So, Mr. Deputy President, I've got 2 questions. First of all, let me just say, my name is Rosemary Adigor, and I'm the PR and Marketing Director for Azimio UK chapter. So I've got 2 questions for you. First, when you formed the government with His Excellency President Kenyatta, he treated you more like a principal. And in that case, you were given some of the most powerful dockets that, as any deputy president, we've never seen that sort of. So that was generosity from his part. But you also played because you also brought the number with you. So it was like this. So what I want to ask is, what are you going to do different, having seen the level of corruption, unprecedented corruption that engulfed our country to an extent whereby people can't even afford to buy milk, people can't even afford to buy even just oil. And yet we have people who they are just rolling in lots of money. They can have a car from Monday to Sunday. And Kenyans are starving.
Second question, please, because we've got lots and lots of questions, please.
So I just ask you, what are you going to do different to Kenyans? Second question, should you not win the election, are you going to concede defeat and be an advocate for peace in our country? Because we know the story, and we are all eyes open. We are watching. So thank you. And lastly, I just
No, two. The lady in the middle here, please. Ahmed. Yeah, we'll go for 3 plus 2.
Excellency, Deputy President, thank you for sharing with us your convictions. I am Nashwat Megwar, Head of Political Practice at Concerto Global Public Affairs. I have 2 questions. The first one is a more political one. As we all know, on 9 August, there are many risks for a fair election. So on which tools do you rely to ensure a fair, transparent and inclusive election, and how can the international community support you this way? The second question is more economic. How can the international investors plug to your bottom-up platform vision to create employment and value in Kenya? And how can they become, as you say, true hustlers for Kenya?
Thank you very much. And there was one gentleman there, you, sir. Yeah. One question, please, because I want to try and get a diverse number of questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guest, His Excellency, my name is Lashan Lethbridge, and my question for you today actually is just, the one. Kenya's shared prosperity in the region of East Africa can only happen if Kenya protects its borders, and I'd actually like to hear your thoughts on the internal security of Kenya and its armed forces, and what your thoughts are to have a prosperous Kenya and a safe Kenya.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes, I have been deputy president for 9 years. I don't know which dockets were given to me because when President Uhuru Kenyatta formed government after the election, we've always had one president. We've never had two. And the responsibility over government has never been shared between Uhuru Kenyatta and myself. Our first term, we ran a coalition government, but I can tell you there was no single opportunity where my party held a PG outside President Uhuru's party. We had one parliamentary group, one government, one program, and it was all clear. There were no dockets that were given to me. I didn't appoint no minister anywhere. Everybody was appointed by the President of Kenya. And the difference, maybe you could ask, is between our first term and our second term. In our first term, granted, I played my role as deputy president. The president assigned me many responsibilities, which I discharged with distinction from where I sit. And that is why, in our first term, we rolled out our plan to build the standard gauge railway. We have built 700 kilometers. I was part and parcel of the entire delivery plan. We set out to build 10,000 kilometers of tarmac road in Kenya. By June this year, in 3 months or so, we will have actually done 11,000 kilometers. I sat long hours with officials in government to design how that was going to happen. Same case to our TVET program. Same case to all the other programs that we delivered on our first term. And to demonstrate our success, we were re-elected in our second term with twice the margin we had been elected in 2013, clearly demonstrating that the people of Kenya were happy with our delivery. Unfortunately, in our second term, because of the political dynamics that came into play, the president told me that he wanted to do things differently. And he didn't want what had become normal in Kenya, that this was Ruto. He wanted a Uhuru. And I had a discussion, a candid discussion with him. And when he told me that's what he wanted, and he wanted to run this government because he wanted his legacy alone as the fourth president of the Republic of Kenya, I was not fussy about it, because he decided that whatever I did in the first term to coordinate the government programs, work on assignments that would consolidate our plan, he decided that he wanted somebody else to do it. And I didn't complain. So executive order number 1 came into force, establishing a different arrangement in government. And I had no quarrel with it, because that's how the president wanted to deliver on his second term. Unfortunately, the people who the president maybe gave that responsibility failed it, because the whole Big Four plan fell apart. The housing plan never took off. The universal health coverage never took off. The whole space on agricultural transformation faltered. And we didn't see any of that plan. In fact, At some point, it forced the president to change the plan. So we went away from the original plan of Big Four. We ended up with another plan called BBI, changing the constitution, working on all the rest of it, which unfortunately again went up in smoke because it was purely unconstitutional. So how do I do things differently? If we had done things the way we had done in our first term, making sure there are clear lines between the opposition and government so that government can be held to account, so that the opposition can play its role, so that instead of the opposition being lackeys and being brokers and being the ones organizing cartels in government and participating in corruption, they should be providing oversight. You're correct. You know, Kenya is in a worse place today. There is no oversight. The fellows who are supposed to provide oversight in the opposition are the ones driving the scandals from KEMSA to all these. They are the ones participating in the troubles. Coming to my grand lady here. Yes, there are people who are skeptical about whether we will have free, fair elections, and especially peaceful elections. The point of elections being violent for the last 3 elections has largely been the refusal by participants of the election to accept the outcome of the election. That has been the point of departure. I can say with a lot of confidence that the last 2 elections did not have tribal anglings. We largely ran 2 formations, one in NASA, one in Jubilee, that largely represented the face of Kenya on both sides. The only challenge that came is when our competitors refused to accept the outcome of the election, organized demonstrations, swore themselves in, did all manner of things, and drove the country into violence. The undertaking I give as a candidate, and I have done it publicly, is that William Ruto will accept the outcome of the election whichever way it goes. And I want all the other candidates to make the same commitment. They have not made the same commitment. They are dodgy about whether they will accept the outcome of this election. In fact, many on that side, it's in the public domain, have said they will rig the election, right? Many on that side have said to those who care, even if William Ruto wins this election, Uhuru Kenyatta will not hand over power to him. They've said that in public, right? So what we need is those of us as Kenyan leaders, the Kenyan public, and our friends in the international community to speak to all the candidates so that they can commit in public unequivocally that they will accept the outcome of this election. And I say so, especially the notorious ones who have never accepted the outcome of any election until they commit that if they lose this election, which is most likely going to be the case, that they will accept the outcome of the election. That way, we can guarantee peace after the election by making sure that all the participants do what I have done publicly. The gentleman has talked about the whole security situation. Part of my engagement let me reframe it first. Addressing ourselves to the inclusive economic model goes a long way in managing the security situation within our country, because many of times the contestations and the conflicts are around resource sharing. The sooner we address ourselves, increase the possibility of our pastoralists, make sure that we enable our pastoralists, enhance their productivity, enhance the productivity of our farming communities, build resilience, and make sure that we using the inclusive economic model, we carry everybody along. We will pacify the country within. And working with our development, with our international partners, and this is the discussion I was having with the State Department, and hopefully I will have that statement with the Minister for Defense and the Minister for Africa tomorrow here in the UK, is on how we can build on the partnership that exists at the moment to deal with violent extremism, and to deal with the challenge of terrorism, and to deal with the issues that are cross-border, how we can build that alliance around AMISOM, around the partnership we have to secure not just Kenya, but to secure the region, so that we can make it available for investors and for partners to work with us in the progress of our country.
So I'm going to take some of the questions coming in from the continent and beyond. So be patient, please. We've got way too many questions here to deal with in the short time we have, but I will also overrun 10 minutes today, and I will overrun next week by 10 minutes also, so we have equity. So first of all, we've got Mutone Mwajere from Nairobi. If you'd like to ask your question live, please go ahead. Mutone. Are you there?
Hi, this is Mavani. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead. We can hear you.
This is Mavani Wanyaki. I had several questions, but I will respect Alex and ask one. How do you reconcile your stance as a defender of the Constitution today with the fact that you mobilized the no vote in the constitutional referendum of 2010? Thank you.
Thank you, Mutoni. We also have a program here called our Common Futures Conversations. And so our next two questions will be from young members of that project. For your information, Deputy President, the Common Futures Conversations project at Chatham House is a centenary initiative. We celebrated our centenary in 2019 that uses a bespoke online platform to provide space for young people in Africa and Europe to share perspectives on key global issues and engage in policy makers. We've received many questions from them, and we've chosen two to ask their questions live to you. So first of all, I'd like to invite Salome Nzuku to ask the question. Salome, please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask this question. My name is Salome Nzuki. I am a founding member of the Common Futures Conversations community and also a Chatham House Youth Advisory panelist. Currently, I work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Kenya. Excellency Deputy President, how will you tackle violence against women, safeguard women's rights, and promote gender equality if elected as the 5th President of Kenya? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the second question is from Daniel Orogo. Daniel, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Daniel Orogo. I am from Nairobi, Kenya. I am a member of the Chatham House Feature Conversation Program, and I am a panelist in the political governance. Your Excellency, the Deputy President, President Kenyatta has admitted severally in different platforms that there is nothing he can do to fight corruption. In fact, he has, in one occasion, thrown up his hands on air and says that there is nothing he can do. What do you want me to do? So as part of the presidency that you have been part of, I am interested to hear how you have seen in your campaigns that you do not really articulate about corruption. And I've heard your presentation about the fund, about institutionalization, but I admit that it is coming until late that you too have been dodgy about your agenda about fighting corruption. Is it by default? And if so, what is your pragmatic agenda in tackling corruption under your presidency if you will be elected? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. And the final question is from Uredo Makoji, which is one about tourism, I believe. Uredo, please go ahead. No? No, Uredo? Okay. Maybe you answer those questions.
Okay. Maybe let me start with Wanyeki. Let me tell Wanyeki, I am a Democrat. And when you are a Democrat, when you participate in a contest and you lose or win, you must accept the outcome of that contest. We went to a referendum. Yes, I mobilized the no vote because I had misgivings about sections, not the whole Constitution, sections of that Constitution. But when the people of Kenya decided that this is the Constitution they want to have, as a Democrat, I had to accept that this now is our document. And I have every right to defend the current Constitution because it is the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And I am a Kenyan. It is a paradox that William Ruto, who had misgivings about sections of the Constitution, today is the defender of the Constitution against the people who pushed for the adoption of the Constitution, who today have become the biggest enemies of the same Constitution. They want to mutilate the same Constitution. And it has to take William Ruto to defend the Constitution of Kenya. Isn't it an irony? I think the people on the other side have more questions to answer than I do. Salome. I quite agree with Salome that we must be even. We are the losers when we exclude women from the leadership of our nation. We have seen the value of women leaders. We have seen the contributions that they make. I have nominated no less than 4 women who have gone ahead to win elections because they've been given a chance to serve. So the more women, the more we provide opportunity for women to participate in leadership, the better for everybody. And that's why, even in the BBI process, I was against getting women from elected positions and making them nominees, of people, their friends, their relatives, their girlfriends, and all the rest of it. We must continuously provide a platform for women to be elected, for them to participate in elective politics. What are we doing? As a party, for every elective post, women pay for nominations half what men pay, as a rule. Number two, we have made it absolutely clear. It is in the rules of our party that any violence is an automatic ticket to disqualification, especially violence against women. So violence is a no-go zone in our party. Violence against women has the severest consequences because we need to provide the opportunity for women to participate in the leadership of our nation. And going forward, we will support the affirmative action components that ensures that representation progressively until we have parity on matters to do with gender becomes our part of our equation until we get everybody the opportunity to be elected. David, I don't remember what David was asking. Can you remind me, David?
Corruption.
Yes, good. David was asking about the subject of corruption. And precisely, he's captured it very well, that there are so many people who pontificate about the fight against corruption. He said, President Kenyatta at some point said there was nothing he could do. I think that's a question he needs to direct to President Kenyatta. I would not throw up my hands that I have nothing to do. I have something to do. I need to get the criminal justice system to have its own financial independence, give them the capacity, the software, the human capital, the hardware to deal with corruption. I have said that I will roll out the judiciary fund to enable the judiciary to deal with accountability by providing them the human resource, the financial independence, the hardware and software to be able to adjudicate over matters and to deal with corruption cases expeditiously. Part of the lethargy around corruption is because it takes 10 years for a corruption case to be dealt with. Why? Because the whole investigation chain is lethargic, and the judiciary do not have the capacity to fast track because they are constrained financially, because we haven't made it possible for them to have that capacity to deal with matters to do with corruption. I have been very clear in my mind as to why the fight against corruption is top on our priority by institutionalizing the fight against corruption. And it is not going to be something personal between me and my friends or my enemies. It is something between the criminals and the law. And in my very honest opinion, the rest of the people who are giving us long lectures about corruption, it is public knowledge in Kenya that there are people who run a laundry to clean, corrupt people. If you are a corrupt person, you just need to pass through some office, pay some small stipend, and all of a sudden you are a clean person, you have no case to answer. I don't think that's what fighting corruption is all about. I don't think personalizing the fight against corruption so that it is me versus my enemies, that's not how to fight corruption. The way to fight corruption is to build the institutions that can independently deal with the challenge of corruption. One final thing. Willie Mutunga, our former Chief Justice, when he left office, he said the one thing that he was very happy about is that the telephone line never rang with a call from StateHouse. In 4 years that he was Chief Justice, not one day. It never ran. And he was very proud of it. Because that's how to keep the independence of institutions and to make sure that every institution does its job. And that's the essence of why the Constitution set up independent institutions to deal with weighty matters like oversight, accountability, and the whole criminal justice system.
Okay, too many hands for the time we've got. Sir, you've had your hand up almost all the way through, so that might be that it's your lucky moment because it's such a strong arm, but you have to be quick, yeah? Just one question sharp. Please go ahead.
Thank you. The Deputy President, my question to you, and this is to be fair to your competitors, it's not that they don't have an agenda. They have a very potent agenda. And to quote Abraham Lincoln, when America was at the point of dissolution, made a very great speech about a house divided against itself cannot stand. And as a man of faith, are you saying the unity call by your competitors is not worthy, seeing that Kenya has been divided since independence and the presidency has been circulating amongst two tribes, and the unity call and the marginalization of Kenyans is not an agenda? You're saying it's an old story? I really want to hear what you would respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The lady in the middle just here. Yes, please. It's coming. Yep. Your opportunity.
Thank you very much. My name is Karen Juguna. I am a midwife here in the UK. I trained and practice here. And my question is around health. Women's health and sexual reproductive health is an issue that's close to my heart. So I would like to ask, what are the plans for your government to tackle the high maternal mortality rate in Kenya? As you know, Africa as a whole, we contribute to 2/3 of maternal death in the world. And Kenya has its fair share. And also to ask what your opinion is in terms of legalizing abortion, which is one of the highest contributors of maternal mortality, and how we can evolve these conversations that are very emotive and also very driven by our faith. But as a profession, putting my professional hat on, I think that we need to have this discussion. Women need to have choice and also look at ways in how we can prevent women from dying from preventable causes. I know there's a lot of work that has been done by the Beyond Zero campaign, and it would be interesting to see how you can, what are your plans in terms of building on that and ensuring that no woman should die from preventable causes in childbirth.
Thank you very much. And then the last question, and here's the gentleman there with the blue checkered top. Yeah, you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name's Joseph Muchibi. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, welcome to London. First question.
One question, please. We've got no more time than that. One.
Okay. Painstakingly has been a dominant word that you've used in explaining your role in political parties. Again, painstakingly, you formed the UDA. Political parties, ideally, are supposed to be the forum upon which public participation is effected for real politics to make sense. I feel for you, and I really feel let down because of how Jubilee tumbled. Because I had a lot of hope, expectation that Kenya was going to have a binary political competition point where ideas were going to be about Jubilee and NASA. That down the drain. back to the tribal fiefdoms that are being created. Now the question is, you are on record as having formed or led the United Republican Party, URP. You stand on that podium and acclaim yourself a Democrat. So there is the Republican and the Democrat you. So now, Republican basically comes from republic, we the people. Democrat is about majority, minority having their say, having their way. Very clear definitions. I like to be very clear with how I define my questions and how I frame my issues. Now, the problem in Kenya is, or as it is, the parties as we have them are operating at the behest of the political leaders, briefcase parties, owners of parties. People do not have, because recently in one of the NDCs, a list came and names were mentioned and the question was put to the floor, yes, nays, yes have their day, elections. Really? So now what commitment do we have from you that the party you're forming, the UDA, will be about elections and not people serving at your behest? Then, Mr.
Sorry,
Your Excellency.
sorry. That's enough. We don't have any more time. No way.
Yeah, okay.
Deputy President, I've just got a few cluster of questions here, which I'm just going to summarize.
Why don't I answer these ones first, and then you
okay, and then we'll have that. So go ahead,
okay.
And then we'll do one final round.
We can meet later. My good brother, I didn't get his name at the back, says, am I dismissing the calls of unity? By no means, no, I'm not dismissing the calls of unity. I just want a bit of honesty and decency around those calls. When we went and we were told that we were having the handshake and it was about the unity of the country, it never turned out that it was a conspiracy. It wasn't genuine. You know, what happened? There was no unity. There was no building bridge. There was nothing. What happened? The handshake destroyed Jubilee, the ruling party. The handshake destroyed NASA, the opposition coalition. The handshake destroyed our Big Four plan. We couldn't implement it. The handshake destroyed government as we knew it. There was no government. There was no opposition. We ended up in a conundrum that nobody knew who was in the opposition. So, as we call for unity, is it the unity of the leaders or is it the unity of the people? It is way different, because there is a push by our competitors that the unity they understand is that if you have 3, 4, 5 leaders from their communities deciding to work together, that is unity, and every Kenyan should be satisfied with it. We hold a different view. We believe that the unity of the nation will be built around getting everybody included. The inclusion, the political inclusion. That's why we are building a national political movement. That's why we are building a national political party. That's why we and our competitors and our friends, we are building a national political formation. Economic inclusion. It's not that when a leader has occupied an office, he has occupied an office on behalf of his community. No. It is the economic inclusion that will create the unity of the nation. And to speak to you directly, if you want to tell us today that you want us to believe you, that you are genuine about the unity of the country, you know? And you have just come from your commitment. You said, this is my commitment, this is my word as a leader. You've walked away from it. In fact, I consider the so-called unity, you know, people running away from their commitments, people running away from what they have committed to other leaders. And if you can lie, if you can cheat, if you can betray a fellow leader, what will you do to the people of Kenya? Huh? So, I mean, really, we have to be honest about this thing, you know, and that's we must speak candidly as Kenyans to these issues. Let's not gloss over big words, or, you know, unity of the country, second liberation, Mandela moment. No, I mean, this is all nonsense. I'm sorry. I mean, we really must speak to the real issues that bring people together. Health. Health is a very big issue. In fact, it's just that he squeezed time out of me. That's one thing that is at the heart of this conversation. We had a whole program on universal health. Unfortunately, we couldn't deal with it because we ended up chasing the BBI stories and the rest of it. So, what is our plan? We managed this year, in fact, three months ago, we managed to pass the changes to the law to make it possible for us to re-engineer the whole health space and make it possible for us to get to universal health coverage that carries with it your concerns on how women access health and how the citizens of Kenya access health. We now have the law that will give us a graduated contribution mechanism where people earning 6 figures like myself can pay more, and the people down the pyramid can pay less. And it is our considered view coming from experts and complete with actuarial expertise that it is possible under the new arrangement for us to double, if not triple, the resources that will be available to manage our health under our new health program as passed by the law in Parliament. That way, we can be able to deliver health in a much more predictable, quality health in a better way. And with it, you know, when we came into office in 2013, okay, I remember I think it was in 2015, we then said that government of Kenya will pay through National Hospital Insurance Fund for every mother who gives birth. Many women avoided going to hospital because they could not afford, but we made it possible that every child must be born with health professionals in place. And that's why significantly we have reduced maternal deaths. With our universal health coverage properly rearranged, that will scale up those interventions. On matters to do with abortion, the law is very clear in Kenya until it is changed that if the health or the well-being or the survival of the mother is in jeopardy, doctors are legally given the permission to save the life of the mother. So that the provision on where life is in danger is already captured by our law. Maybe then, unless you're talking about something much more progressive, then that's another discussion. Kenya is a democratic country. we will have a conversation. And when we get to that place where we make that decision, then we will implement it in whatever fashion that the law will provide at that point in time. Mushibi, sorry. Yeah. On what guarantees do we have to make sure that we are not transiting from this party and the parties are not democratic and that kind of thing? I am the biggest loser when it came to the collapse of Jubilee. I had invested, the same way I see that passion in you, I had invested a lot of emotion, a lot of effort in building the Jubilee Party.
So the hand's already going up. Just a reminder to those of you that are live streaming with us, if you're on Zoom, you can indicate that you want to ask a question. Either send your question in, and we'll also try and unmute a few of you to give you that opportunity to ask the question live. My apologies if you are on our live stream and not on the Zoom platform, you're not going to be able to ask a question, but I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing, and do tweet if you want to. So let me go across the room now, and the hands are up. So I'll take a cluster of questions, Honourable Raila. The gentleman there. Yep, you sir, please introduce yourself and ask your question. Just one question, please, because we're going to get plenty.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Raila Odinga. My name is Fred. I teach political science at King's College London. And
who you are?
My name is Fred. I teach political science at King's College London. And my question is regard to your program for the middle class in Kenya, because your opponent, William Ruto, has this bottom-up approach about the poor. You also have this welfare program for the poor, but nobody's talking about the middle class in Kenya who have to bear the taxation to take care for this program. So what exactly are you going to do for the Kenyan middle class in terms of improving their welfare? Thank you.
Okay. Don't worry, we're going through the room. You, sir? Yeah.
Afternoon. My name is Julius Baluto. I'm a broadcast journalist here in the UK. Prime Minister, my question focuses on the youth and the future of... Julius Baluto.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question focuses on the youth in Kenya and the future. Prime Minister, a lot of developing countries, they do have what we call innovation hubs scattered across, whereby if a child has a brilliant idea, they take it there, and then government kind of supports that to keep innovating. I know Kenya is very innovative. With the M-Pesa, for example, is taking, money transfer to the next level in Kenya. What are your programs like when it comes to help youth in terms of innovation?
Thank you very much. And let's get right over, but one question, please. Yes? Guaranteed?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Right Honourable. Welcome back to London. My question is regards to your agenda. My name is Wekesa. I also teach at King's College London. My question regards with your agenda point number 10, and that's you speak about administrative continuity, and you've touched on corruption. Your brother, President Kenyatta, admittedly that he couldn't do anything about corruption. And you've been at the forefront of condemning corruption, from saying Kenyatta stole the Eurobond. I wonder, what will your government do if you're going to continue with the same administrative in terms of fighting the same corruption with regards to the Panama Papers, the Pandora Papers, the KEMSA COVID billionaires? Like, what's different are you going to do? And does administrative continuity mean also inheriting the lethargic fight against corruption? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take those three and then we'll come back. So I'll do another round in the hall, and then I'll go for a live stream after that, and then I'll come back to you. Please go ahead.
This one is about, Fred talked about the plans that you have for the middle class. Of course, as you see, there's been a lot of emphasis on the underprivileged class, which is the poor. The middle class, of course, know very well how to look after themselves. But they are not people who are looking for the very basic requirements like basic shelter, food on the table, and so on. Middle class are looking for example, affordable housing in terms of shelter. They're looking for good schools for their children, which is affordable, the lowering cost of living generally, ensuring that food is basically available and reasonable. The cost of energy, which is affecting the middle class. Those are things that we intend to address, making sure that the transport system is working in urban environment, and also basically urban transport is working properly. I mentioned the cost of energy and so on. So those are issues that we are actually addressing in our manifesto comprehensively, which will ensure that the middle class grows. We want to grow the middle class. What we have said is that you don't deprive those who have in order to empower the poor. And like the emphasis has been made in what they call the bottoms-up approach. We are saying that we create a conducive environment for upward social mobility to allow as many people coming to rise up and join the middle class and even the upper classes. This is what we're intending to do. The youth innovation, yes, our youth are very vibrant and very creative indeed. You just mentioned the example of the M-Pesa. We are the ones who invented the mobile money, which we've given to the world. Unfortunately, the inventor himself did not really benefit from the product of his work. We've said that you need to be able to protect intellectual property of the youth. They make inventions, they are protected so that they can be able to benefit from what comes out of their work. That itself will create a lot of incentives to promote the youth to be more creative in inventions in our country. Okay. This is, intellectual property. Mr. Wekesa, I've said yes, that we will continue the positive work that has been done by the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta. I've never said that we are going to inherit the negative things. There are certain negative things that Uhuru himself has actually admitted. He said that, for example, the government loses close to 2 billion shillings daily into corruption. He is, of course, felt very much unable to deal with it. The reason is because he's got a divided government. Is being undermined from within his own government by his deputy, who is basically an opposition inside the government. And therefore, any fight against corruption is politicized. If anybody is investigated by investigative authorities and is arrested or being charged, there's always the cry that, oh, so-and-so is being targeted because he's my supporter. So-and-so is being because he's my supporter. So they cannot really fight against this corruption internally because of internal contradictions within the Jubilee government itself. I do not have that kind of baggage myself. I'm coming in there with clean hands, and people know me. Remember when I was Prime Minister, as a time when I actually suspended 2 ministers because of investigations which had been carried out and pointed to those ministers. Unfortunately, because of, at that time, the internal divisions in the government, they were saved by my partner at that time. But we've said that nobody will be indispensable in the government. And if you want to really carry out a successful war against corruption, then you just begin yourself. If any member of your family is caught in this, you must ensure that action is taken against them. I give an example of Kagame, whose own brother was arrested and imprisoned, and he would go to visit his brother in prison and just tell him, sorry, but this is where you belong. You know, if you take those kind of actions, then people will begin to know that it is not business as usual. It must be business as usual to dealing with this hydra-headed animal called corruption. And there will be a determination to do it. But it is not only in the field of public servants and so on. In the whole criminal justice system, investigative authorities themselves sometimes need to be investigated. Prosecutorial authorities who refuse to prosecute once evidence has been compiled by those who are investigating, then you find that the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, prosecution refuse to actually prosecute, take them to court. The third is the end of it, till end, the judiciary. People have been charged. Once they're taken to court, you've got a battery of all these lawyers baying in the court, oh, these people are basically innocent until proved guilty through a due process, and make it impossible even for the judiciary to work. But those are corrupt judiciary. Give bail or bond, and then the cases are never listed for hearing. Years on, cases which were taken to court at the beginning of the life of this regime in 2018 have not been heard up to today. So a corrupt judiciary is also responsible for what we're doing. So it's not only the members of the public generally, but we will ensure that we do a cleaning exercise from the police officers through the prosecution authorities and to the judiciary to ensure that our system works properly in the interest of our people. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go over here. Is it you, Fergus? Yeah, Yep. So, Mark, go ahead. Yep. Please introduce yourself. Some people won't know who you are.
Mark Malloch-Brown, former Africa Minister and President of the Open Society Foundations. Honourable Raila, it probably won't surprise you that I'm going to ask about how you ensure there is an honest election. Having been with you as Africa Minister in 2008 when we feel you were cheated at the right outcome, having seen the dismal conduct of the last election in terms of the vote count, how will you ensure when you're running against a well-funded, ruthless partner, how will you make sure that the honest election takes place, which allows the candidate with the most votes to win?
Thank you very much. How will you ensure that that you will win in a fair way, given the complexities of Kenyan politics? We've had so many questions on this particular issue. Both my WhatsApp and the computer's full of them. There is another question tied to this also, Honourable Raila, which came up last week with Mr. Ruto, who said he would accept an election result. So the question to you is, will you accept an election result in Kenya? Let's go here, this gentleman right at the front.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Moses Langat. I work at Kew Gardens and also teach at the University of Surrey in Guildford.
Can you just speak up a bit, please? Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Moses Langat, and I work at Kew Gardens and also teach at the University of Surrey in Guildford. My question is around the handshake. The Right Honourable Prime Minister has said that he dialogued with the President and they shook hands. We know what happened in Kenya. That meant that the opposition collapsed. Members of the Parliament from the opposition took positions in the ruling government. Literally, we ended up with another government of national unity. So my question to the Prime Minister is, are we expecting another handshake in 2023? Will there be a third government of national unity? And by extension, what are you teaching, or what is Kenya teaching opposition leaders in Africa? Thank you.
Okay. And the final one is the lady there. Please go ahead. It's been gentlemen up to now, so absolutely your turn.
Thank you. My name is Karen Juguna. I am a midwife here in the UK. I trained and practiced here. Yeah. My question is around maternal health. So you talked about constitution reform, and I'm interested to know what your government has, what plans are in terms of reducing maternal mortality. As you know, maternal mortality, reducing maternal mortality is a global agenda. And we commend Beyond Zero for the work that they've done in almost bringing to the front the plight of the African women through childbirth. So, and we know that at the moment in Kenya, unsafe abortion contributes to 35% of maternal mortality. So I'm interested to find out how you will build on the work that has been done by Beyond Zero, but in particular, do you have any reforms in terms of having policies, looking at the policies around abortion? They're very much pro-life at the moment, but I think that we cannot address maternal mortality in Kenya without addressing unsafe abortions and the complications that come from that.
There you go. Plenty of questions.
To answer my friend of the so Brown, how do I ensure the win? You know how me and him have been agonized, particularly in 2007, when what was not expected to happen happened. It has been a long road, as you know. Following the 2007 Bush elections, because Kenya has paid a very heavy price in terms of loss of life that resulted. And we had said that never again will that happen. Unfortunately, the subsequent experiences have not been very much different. We set up a team at that time, the Kriegler Commission, to investigate what happened. And they came up and said that one of the reasons was the manual transmission of results, which enabled the people to interfere with the outcome, and recommended that Kenyans should go electronic. Unfortunately, the results with this have not been very pleasant. Remember what happened in 2013, and we contested the outcome at that time. We went to the Supreme Court, unlike in 2007, when we did not have confidence in the Supreme Court. At this time, we went, but then because we did not get evidence in time, by the time we were able to compile our evidence, they said that we were time-barred. and therefore our evidence was dismissed. And then the Supreme Court went on to say we lost the elections. And we said we did not agree with the Supreme Court ruling, but we generally accepted because we respected the Supreme Court and urged our supporters not to involve in any kind of violence or demonstrations. So we then resigned ourselves to our role as an opposition and waited for the next time. And then the next time came in 2017. Again, we had a similar experience and went back again to the Supreme Court. This time the Supreme Court agreed with us and nullified the presidential elections. Unfortunately, the Electoral Commission was not able to guarantee that the repeat elections were going to be different from the other ones. That's why we boycotted the repeat elections that time. We are hoping that this will not happen this time around, but we are, of course, monitoring the Electoral Commission, and we have actually pointed out areas of our concern that we want them to address to ensure that the process is free and fair. And we have actually said that if this is free and fair, and we win or we lose fairly, we will accept the result either way, so long as it's free and fair. Then Moses is talking about that the handshake basically destroyed the opposition. I just want it to be understood properly that the handshake came as a result of the crisis that was in the country at that time. The Supreme Court had nullified the elections. We had demanded that the playing field be leveled before we participated. That was not done. In the end, of course, we called for a boycott of the repeat, and the turnout was, of course, very, very low. But then they went on to now swear the president on its own, which angered our people. We called for boycotts of certain products in the country. We also called for positive action, that is demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations, which were taking place on a weekly basis. This, of course, was causing clashes between our supporters and the police, and a lot of lives were being lost. There was a time when we went to a place called Ligindogo with 38 coffins of victims of bullet shots by the police. Another time we went to the mortuary and we got 27 corpses, again victims of the police brutality. Quite a number of our people were in hospitals, in different hospitals in the country with bullet wounds. So it was causing a lot of losses of lives, pain, and also to the economy because the demonstrations were basically disrupting the business. Now some of our people have said we basically declare our sovereignty and run our affairs. In the midst of this, because people, we had accessed the real results of the elections, we did the swearing in. And so now you are the president and the people's president. And people said, let us now take all the portraits of President Kenyatta in all the public buildings, in our strongholds, keep them somewhere, touch them, and declare our sovereignty and begin to collect taxes and run our affairs. On the other hand, the supporters of Mr. Kenyatta went and told him what Mr. Odinga has done is treason. Let's arrest him, charge him with treason, take him to committee, and hang him so that peace comes back to the country. Both ways, Mr. Kenyatta refused, and I also refused. It is under those circumstances that we agreed to meet and to dialogue. And it took a very long time until we basically agreed that Kenya was bigger and more important to both of us. And we agreed that we would work together to ensure that never again will Kenyans go to the ballot and we end up with violence like has been the case before. And that will ensure that the elections are free and fair. And we agreed to shake hands and came up with a memorandum of understanding that was aimed at creating the enabling environment. That is what eventually resulted in what was called the Building Bridges Initiative in our country. So opposition did not collapse, to answer you. We did not go into government, unlike the propaganda being spread by our detractors. We remained very much in opposition. Our party in parliament was doing what is done in this country, what you call Her Majesty's loyal opposition, where you do not just propose for the sake of proposing, but to propose and also offer a constructive alternative as to what you are opposing. This is what has been happening in Kenya. There have been fallacious theories that, oh, you've got opposition in government and government in opposition. Nothing could be further from the truth, because that so-called government in opposition is living in officialdom. The deputy president, when he came to this country and the United States, he spent over $1 million US dollars in taxpayers' money to bring that entourage out here. He's traveling with the government security.